Well, hello there, and welcome to the fourth video of Financial Literacy Month. This week's theme is continuing on budgeting, and the topics we'll be covering in this video are, first, a quick review. What are budgets and why should you make one? Then, we'll go in depth on how to make a budget, and we'll be covering the various topics to give you the knowledge to do so. Our quick review. What is a budget? A budget is a plan that helps you manage your money. It helps you figure out how much money you're getting, how much you're spending, and how much you're saving. And why should you make a budget? Making a budget can help you balance your income with your savings and expenses. It guides your spending to help you reach your financial goals. These goals can be anything, but can include helping with if you don't know where your money is going and want to reduce costs and save more. You have problems paying off your debts and setting spending limits. You feel overwhelmed by your finances and want to reduce stress. Alright, so first we're going to cover some misconceptions about budgeting. A lot of people think that budgeting is all about math, which can lead to many becoming intimidated and not even making an attempt at creating a budget. Now, budgeting does involve some simple math, but I promise you it's nothing more than simple addition and subtraction. A budget is meant to be a very simple tool that anyone at any level can create and use. There's also the misconception that budgeting is about willpower or restricting yourself. Let's get one thing straight. Budgeting is not about depriving yourself. It's about organizing your spending priorities. A major reason why people tend to blow their budgets is because they don't first look at their own spending habits. This can lead to setting unrealistic expectations and a guarantee that your budget will fail. A perfect example of this would be setting a $10 limit for coffee every month. If you love coffee and you're likely to purchase one every single morning, setting such a low monthly budget of $10 will only guarantee that you're going to blow it every month. Remember, budgeting is meant to empower your finances, not shame you with your spending. To begin our budget, we need to identify some things first, mainly our needs and wants. To do this, you just need to ask yourself, does this thing help me not die? Dramatic, I know, but it works. For example, some needs could be rent or shelter costs, groceries, Wi-Fi, and in today's digital age, internet is absolutely a need, utilities, while some wants could be eating out every weekend with friends, buying concert tickets, or a new video game. The nice thing about wants is that it's the category we have the most control over to help us stay on budget. Additionally, you may want to identify some short-term or long-term money goals so you can make saving for those goals part of your budget. But that's completely optional. For those who would like to use them, here are some examples of short-term and long-term money goals. Some short-term goals may be paying off your credit card, reducing your weekly expenses, starting to build an emergency fund, while long-term goals could be paying off all your student debts, saving up for a vacation, saving to buy a car or a home. Now that we've identified our needs and our wants, our short-term and our long-term money goals, now we need to figure out in what order are we going to allocate resources to them. Or, in other words, what are our spending priorities? Our highest spending priorities are our needs because not paying them is not an option. So that leaves our money goals and wants. Now, this step might take a little bit of soul searching. Like my previous example, if getting a coffee every morning is important to you, then that coffee will have a higher spending priority than the other things on your list. Since it's a higher spending priority, resources are allocated to it to guarantee that you can get that caffeine hit every morning without going over budget. I'm going to give you guys a quick example of my own spending priorities to show you what I mean. After all my highest spending priorities, or my needs, are paid, these are my spending priorities in order of highest to lowest. You'll notice that the highest priorities on this list are my credit cards. This is because my highest spending priority right now is my short-term money goal, which is to pay off both my credit cards by next fall. So I'm putting in more funds to my number one than just the interest, since interest payments would technically fall under my needs. Past my number one, you guys can see that my priorities are eating out and coffee. I've organized my spending priorities this way because I'm willing to reduce the funds I allocate to 2, 3, and 4 to ensure I have enough for my number one. Remember, you shouldn't be depriving yourself, but we also have to keep in mind we are working with limited resources. The whole point of this exercise is to make sure that you're putting your hard-earned money somewhere that's worth it to you. Now that we've finished setting our spending priorities, it's time to build our budget. So what tools do we need? An Excel spreadsheet or Google Sheets would be ideal, but you can just as easily use a pen and paper and your phone's calculator. We're going to start by splitting our sheet into 3 columns, like on the screen. The first is income, which are the funds available to you. Expenses, which are your reoccurring costs and the limit of what you plan to spend your money on. The total column is the outcome after we subtract our expenses from our income. This is how our budget will both look and function. Now, let's start populating it. Under the income column, you're going to list all the sources of funds you have available to you this month with their monetary amount. This can be your savings, your paycheck from work, a $20 bill you found in an old jacket, and you're going to put the total at the bottom. Next is the expenses column. We want to list all of our needs, wants, and money goals in order of their spending priority, and then total them all up at the bottom. Your needs are at the top, and I've put them in italics, with everything else in order of spending priority below. Now we want to do the tiny bit of math I mentioned earlier and subtract the expenses from our income to give us our total. In this scenario, our total comes up to $360, which is great. This means if we stick to our budget, we'll have an extra $360 every month that we can use for whatever we like. As a side note, this budget technically isn't balanced. A balanced budget means that your expenses and your income cancel out to give you 0. But in practice, as long as your budget doesn't yield a negative number, you're good to go. With that extra $360 from the example in mind, I want to talk real quick about savings. It's always a good idea to have some funds set aside for emergencies. How much you set aside is completely up to you. It can be the full amount of any extra money that you have at the end of the month, or it can just be $20. It's what you're comfortable with. You can even make it a money goal and work it into your budget. Now, what happens if you create a budget and it ends up yielding a negative amount? A negative number means you are spending more than you're earning, and this can lead to unnecessary debt. This is where those soul-searching questions come in. A budget comes down to prioritizing what's important to you, and also understanding that allocating resources to one thing may mean reducing it for others. And while it'll never be about depriving yourself, it does involve asking the hard question of, do I need this thing right now? And I want you to pay attention to that right now. Just because you can't afford something this month doesn't mean you never will. It just means you have different spending priorities at the moment. All right, so we have a budget that works on paper, but how do we stick to it? The easiest way to do this is to track your purchases. You can do this by picking a time that's convenient to you, ideally once a week, to add your actual purchases to your budget spreadsheet. I normally do this Sunday morning with something playing in the background because it's not exactly a thrilling task. By doing this once a week, I'm able to check to see if I'm still on budget or if I'm about to blow it. Now, let's say we sit down, track all our actual spending, and realize we didn't budget for an unexpected car repair. Here's the expense list we prepared earlier. Now we need to find the new limits of what we plan to spend for the remainder of the month. We'll start by figuring out if we've gone over budget or not with this car expense. To do this, we'll add our expense budget total of $2,140 with the actual amount we spent on the car repair of $500. This will give us $2,640. This is our new budget because it accounts for the car repair. I then take the new budget total of $2,640 and subtract it from my income, which was mentioned just a little while back, of $2,500. This gives us a negative $140. So, with this car repair and our previous budget, we will end up blowing our budget by $140. So what do? Well, in this case, we have a few areas we can take funds from to help keep us on track. Clothes and coffee are our primary choices because they are our lowest spending priority. So, with our coffee and clothes budget reduced, we can now afford the car repair. Hooray! But also, remember the savings I mentioned earlier? If we had savings put aside, this is exactly what they could be used for. Instead of reducing the budget for coffee and clothes, we could have used our savings instead. But really, either of these methods work. Remember, as long as you're not getting a negative total, your budget will work. And it's as easy as that to make changes to your budget. Now remember, if you have to make changes or completely overhaul your budget, that's completely normal and expected, especially when you're starting out. To summarize the steps we need to make a budget. First, identify your needs, wants, and money goals. 2, set your spending priorities. 3, build and set a monthly budget for your spending priorities. 4, track your spending, ideally weekly. And 5, make adjustments to your budget if necessary. Some last few points to remember. Taking control of your finances is meant to reduce stress, not increase it. If creating your budget starts to become overwhelming, take a step back and come back to it once you're in a better headspace. It's not a race. Tracking your spending and building a budget entirely from scratch is a challenge, and there are plenty of apps out there that can help ease this process. I recommend Mint, but there are plenty more out there. I recommend trying a few, and most importantly, be kind to yourself. At the end of the day, a budget consists of a bunch of set numbers on a sheet, and despite our best efforts to plan for every single event, life still happens. That's it for today's video. The links for everything we mentioned in this video will be in the description box below. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our new videos. And also, follow us on Twitter. We put important information up there, like deadlines. If you have any comments, questions regarding the video or the topic we covered today, feel free to leave it in the comments below. I hope it's a great week for you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!